Hi, folks. Welcome to the Seven Figure Network podcast. You know that we work very, very hard to get guests on board that have trained not only throughout this industry, but industries that have been far reaching. And that's why Tim Shurr is here. Tim is not only a friend, he and I have done interviews together in mental health, PTSD. I love it when I get to interview an actual friend. And I consider Tim a friend because we spent a lot of time together on camera, off camera, talking about really trying to change the world. And Tim has had a massive impact on some of the biggest companies in network marketing. And again, you guys know I don't like to tell anybody's story. So I'm going to have Tim tell the story of how he got into the industry and who he's worked with. But I just wanted you guys to know that, Tim and I are dear friends. We've really been passionate about, really changing the world together. And I think that this interview is going to help you in your business a lot. So Tim, thanks a lot for being on today, man. I really appreciate you being here.
Mel, it's always a pleasure and so much fun hanging out with you.
Thank you, buddy. So, again, I want you to tell your story. How did you get into training in particular, but even more importantly, how did you get into working with network marketers?
So it's kind of interesting because I grew up in sales, right? That's how I put myself through school. I went to school for psychology, and I thought I was going to be Dr. Tim and go that route with psychoanalysis, and sales helped me to live, right? And pay my bills and put food on the table. And so I started out at selling vacuum cleaners door to door, right? Of course, they were home cleaning systems. They weren't vacuum cleaners.
Classic.
At the time. That's right. And so worked at Radio Shack, did all kinds of different odds and ends with selling, and learned that it really is about relationships. And as I was going to school for psychology, I found that it's the same thing. It's about building trust. It's about getting people to feel like you're able to lead them in a direction that's going to be better for them. It's going to improve their life. And so, but I didn't end up going fully into psychology. As you know, I ended up becoming one of the world's top hypnotists of all things. And so how did I get into hypnosis? Well, by total accident, I was in one of my psychology classes and they had guest speakers come in. One happened to be a hypnotist, and they asked for a volunteer. Now, growing up, I also had loads of anxiety, all kinds of worry, fear, stress, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, feeling like I had big dreams. I had greatness inside of me, Mel, but I didn't know how to access it or how to, how to make it happen. I saw these other people making it happen. It seemed like, are they just better than me? Are they luckier than me? Do they have better connections? No. It's just that they had a different psychology, a different set of beliefs. And so, so I volunteered to be hypnotized during that class. And it was the first time in my whole life where the anxiety disappeared for a little while. I felt this sense of calm, this feeling of ease. I couldn't even explain what was happening. It's just the knot in my stomach wasn't there. And so I got really interested in hypnosis, and that kind of opened the door for all the other peak performance fields and neuro-linguistic programming. And a lot of the sales industry has come from understanding hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming and the study of your mind. And so it's been 32 years now. It's been 30 years since I had that hypnosis experience. And I dove deep into the hypnosis because it really is the art and science of studying how your mind creates reality, of how your unconscious mind influences you every single day, and the power of suggestion and the power of beliefs, and how you influence yourself in that way. And so that's what I've been doing. And I got really, really excited because I was having these amazing breakthroughs happening in front of me. And then I was watching my clients have these extraordinary breakthroughs, people that felt like their goals were absolutely impossible. And I was watching them happen. They were achieving these goals right in front of my eyes. So I started telling everybody that I could, hey, I know it's, you think that it's clucking like a chicken and stuff, but it's not, you have power inside of you, and everybody says you should be this way, but very few people tell you how to become that way. And through the hypnosis, I figured that out. And so I grabbed the attention of network marketers and people in Amway and people that were really high up, that were getting commission checks that were seven figures. Mm-hmm. And they started asking me if I would come train their diamonds, right? Or come work with their top line people. And so that's how I got wind to network marketing, and how I started helping people to realize the extraordinary opportunity that they have, not just financially, but there's very few places, unless you are a searcher or a student of success in some way, there's very few ways to really get into personal development in the way that network marketing sets up for you. Because to be a marketer of any capacity means that you have to understand yourself, you have to understand people, and you have to understand relationships and human behavior. And through that journey, you're able to have such amazing personal growth. So it's not just how much money you make, it really is who you become through the process. And I'm here to share some of the secrets that I've learned today with everybody that's listening.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. And I tell you, it's, you and I have spoken at length about hypnosis, NLP, and how pervasive psychology is in every aspect of success. And I know that's it sounds like I'm saying the most obvious thing on the planet, but until you've seen ups and downs, you don't realize. Because a lot of folks, they might have been quote unquote a little lucky, and especially in network marketing. I mean, you and I both know folks who have, grown massive networks from 4 or 5 people. I was talking to Jordan Adler the other day, fantastic guy, incredibly successful. He says I think it was 7 people. He's been earning millions of, over $1 million a year for decades now, 7 people's effort. But you don't realize that without having that deep psychology. So when you work with groups and hypnosis, is that possible? I mean, being still, kind of a newbie, when you're standing in front of a crowd of people, will hypnosis raise that entire crowd? Is it down to the individual in the crowd? How does that actually play out en masse?
So, yeah, I've worked with groups for years, and it just is amazing how there's something special about working with a group, especially if you're live. But I just did a Zoom call with John Ashraf's group. He was in the movie The Secret. He had 500 people attend from all over the world. And I took him through one of my awakening experiences, and it was transformational. I get calls from people from Egypt and Australia and all over the place, Canada, saying, hey, I love this. I want to introduce it to my people. Right. And so I have a network marketing friend in Canada, and she has a book club, and they were using my One Belief Away book for that. So I made a guest appearance and surprised everybody. And so, yes, you can certainly do groups, especially because I've facilitated over 15,000 individual 1-hour hypnosis sessions. And so it took me about 20 years to do that. And through that, I learned what buttons to push, how to set things up so that just about anybody can have an extraordinary experience. And so, yeah, groups are easy to do. People one of their biggest fears is, I don't know if I could be hypnotized. I don't know if it'll work for me. If you have a mind, you're going to be fine, right? That is just a fear that keeps people stuck. But yeah, getting relaxed, and then it's not being in a magical state of mind, Mel. It's what you do in a suggestible state of mind. And people walk around in a suggestible state of mind. That's why we have to be careful of how much news we watch and how much time we spend on social media, because so much of that negativity is influencing us and making us feel scared or envious or not enough. So yeah, you can certainly work with groups, and it really is the same as one-on-one, except when you're in a group, you have the power and the leverage of everybody else's experiences as well. And so you get to learn from osmosis. You might not see your own blind spots, but you'll recognize the blind spots that other people are having, which speeds up your growth and self-awareness. So there's a lot of power in doing group programs.
Wild. Let's now talk about NLP for a second. And I know you and I had not discussed talking about any of this kind of stuff. You and I just always talk about whatever the coolest thing is that pops into our minds. I consider NLP to be indispensable for network marketers. I think that you should have at least some education. What's a good way actually, first and foremost, can you explain what NLP is, please? And then what would be a good way for somebody to get started knowing the right way to speak to people from a powerful NLP standpoint?
Okay, so a couple resources. First, neuro means the brain. Linguistic is language, and then programming is how you're using language to influence your brain, right? And to influence your connection with somebody else, or to change how you think and how you feel inside of yourself. So neurolinguistic programming is really the study of how we create our subjective reality and how to influence that reality very quickly. And so I've been studying it for a couple of decades now, and taught it as well. I've taught and did certification programs, the basic master and train your trainer. I trained a lot of people in NLP, a lot of sales people in companies, and then individually who've reached out. And it is, like you said, it is extraordinarily powerful because it gives you a deep understanding of how to read body language, of how to know what to say, and how to read people like a book so that you know exactly what questions to ask and how to ask them and what words to use and how to hold your body and how fast or slow to speak and what kind of questions to ask, just by, looking at someone for 10 seconds. And it's like extraordinary because they give you this incredible amount of information, and it's invisible to most people. And so NLP kind of gives you these special glasses where all of a sudden you can see all this information and then use it to ethically influence people to move in a direction that's going to be good for both them and you. And so that's how it works. As far as getting started, there's books on NLP, there's courses out there. If you are interested in doing it specifically for sales, I have a program called Sales Mastery, and it is for salespeople and for network marketing people. And it also really focuses on teaching NLP strategies and techniques. So what it looks like in action, right? Because NLP isn't just a bunch of techniques. It's not a swish pattern or a 6-step reframe. It is an understanding of how things work, why things work. Robert Dilts said it's the study of excellence, right? And so we want to be excellent. We want to be outstanding. If you're just okay, or you're just good, or even if you're great, you will not experience the kind of riches that people who are outstanding experience. Yeah. And so that's why, it's so great. So I've got a sales mastery program that you can participate in. It's very low cost, and it'll blow your mind from the very first chapter.
Before I ask the next question, how would folks find that?
You can go to my indyhypnosis.com, INDY hypnosis.com, and go to the success store. I just slashed all the prices for all my audio programs, and that is an audio program. It comes with a PDF so you can read, but a lot of people like to listen on the go, whether they're exercising or driving or whatever. And so you don't have to read a big, therapy book or sales book. You can just listen to it on the go. And so, you just go there and then check out the store.
Perfect. Thanks, bud. So let's move into some real specific stuff. I don't like to talk about lockdown a lot because it's so negative. you know me as well as anybody. I do not delve into negativity, but I do want to talk about what have you done with your clients over these last couple of years? What's been the quote unquote secret of growing during lockdown? If you can go into that, because now I want to really start digging into some real specifics, how we can help some folks out.
Well, we got to stay up, right? And that is the most difficult thing to do when you're isolated, when you feel like your world has changed. I was a motivational speaker, and then all of a sudden my keynotes all disappeared, right? I lost like 70% of my business overnight because of this pandemic. And that was rough. My big client that I was working with was a hospital. And so that went away too. And so I lost a significant amount of my business. So what did I do? I pivoted, right? Life is full of change. So what do? You pivot, right? You figure out where are the opportunities. And I started focusing on where was the creative opportunity in this situation. As you know, Mel, the quality of your life is being determined by the quality of the questions that you ask yourself all day long. So what kind of questions are you asking yourself? Why is this so unfair? How come this had to happen to me? How come everybody else seems to be thriving and I'm not? What's wrong with me? Those are all terrible questions. And if you're asking them, you should stop, right? Instead, you ask questions like, where's the opportunity here? What resources do I have? Who can I lean on for support? What do I want to have happen? If I could reassess my life, a lot of people reassess their life over the last couple of years. I felt like I was on a runaway train that was just going so fast and I could never get off of it. And this allowed me to step back, reassess what's most important to me. I got to spend more time with my family. And so in those situations, I always take a look at our beliefs, and then what we're saying to ourselves in our mind, what we're focusing on. But our beliefs are most important. And that's what I specialize in is upgrading unconscious beliefs, as you know. And so that is something that's so important. And I will tell you, most people miss that part. With all the personal development and pop psychology tools that are out there, very few people actually know how to access your deepest core beliefs and improve them. And so I've created a series of experiences, my awakening programs, my One Belief Away books that help you to uncover your core belief. And most people have a core belief because we've all been through big T and little t traumas that I'm not good enough. I'll be rejected. I won't be loved. I have to chase approval. I have to make sure everybody's happy. I don't want anybody to be mad at me. Right. I have to be this, the caretaker, the super achiever, the entertainer, the troublemaker, to be able to get attention. And so we have these beliefs that are driving every decision we make. We think that we're using our logic and reacting based on what's happening in our environment. But instead, we are reacting based on old programming that we developed when we were kids, these beliefs. And so that programming helps us to know, or it reveals how we're going to show up in any uncertain situation, because life is full of uncertainty, right? There's nothing certain out there in the world except you're going to have taxes and bills, right? And so you have to create your own certainty. And so if you look at the pandemic and you're like, this is a disaster, or you look at your network marketing business and you say, I'm never going to be able to get there, then you won't, right? But if you learned that to upgrade those beliefs that are your blind spots that are holding you back, and you start saying, you know what? I'm amazing. I love myself. I accept myself. I know that I'm going to be okay. There's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback, and there's always a way. As my friend Les Brown always says, if you fall down, try to land on your back, because if you can see up, you can get up, and that's an attitude. He was not born with that. He had to develop that. These are skills. Skills that we develop inside of ourselves, so that it doesn't matter what shows up. What matters is how you show up. And that's the most important part of any journey, including your network marketing journey.
As we always talk about, a journey starts with one step. What would that first step be? So somebody who's in the dumps right now, either they've been, we don't joke about this, but we talk about it. Some folks have been in and they haven't made money in 6 months. It's actually costing them money to be in this. And they're, and now they're hearing it from their spouse. They're hearing it internally. Am I doing the right thing? Is it my fault that this isn't working? What would be that first step? What cracks that egg to get people moving in that right direction?
So the first step is you ask yourself, I'm going to give you 5 steps, right? So
Beautiful.
This is something
Thank you.
can use right away. Yeah. So step number 1, ask yourself, what would I have to believe in order to feel the way that I'm feeling right now? What would I have to believe? And then, Shrek said we have layers, right? And so we got to keep asking that question over and over and over. What would I have to believe in order to feel like I can't get this business to work, right? Or I'm running out of time, or I'm never going to be able to do this. What would I have to believe in order to feel that way?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'd have to believe that, I'm not smart enough, or maybe I'm not as talented as other people. Well, what would you have to believe in order to feel that way, that you're not smart or you're not talented? And you just keep asking that question. Well, I don't know, I guess because it hasn't worked out, and I've spent all this money and I've tried and talked to people. I got rejected and it's not working out. So maybe it's not right for me. Well, what else would you have to believe about yourself? And you just keep going down. And what people usually come up with, Mel, is, well, I probably have to believe that maybe I'm just not good enough to be able to pull this off. I'm just not cut out. Yeah. That is the universal fear that everybody has. I had the same fear. You had the same fear, Mel. We all doubt ourselves. We all wonder if we're going to pull this off.
Absolutely.
We all wonder why we're not farther along than we should be, and why other people, why does Tony Robbins have all this success? Well, I'll tell you what, he has his problems and his pain too, right? He don't talk about it, but he talks about his pain from 20 years ago. He's not talking about what he's going through today. But, so we all have that insecurity, but that's all it is. It's insecurity and false beliefs. So if you finally come down to, well, I just don't think that I'm good enough. That's the core fear. That's the biggest fear, false evidence appearing real. Then question number 2, what would I rather believe instead? Remember, the quality of your questions determine the quality of your life. So what would I rather believe instead? Well, I want to believe that I am good enough, that I am worthy, that I am as lucky like anybody else, that I am capable of doing this, and that I can make this happen. Maybe I just need to upgrade my beliefs, or I need to have a different approach, or I need to get some feedback. I will tell you that what stops people are our blind spots. When we don't know what we don't know. I have a friend that was struggling with sales, and because he didn't ever brag about himself. He's actually out of India, and he said, in India, we're taught to do kindness and then throw it in the river. He says, you don't pat yourself on the back for doing kindness. I'm like, well, so you were taught not to toot your own horn, not to brag about all the good work you do. He says, that's right. I'm like, well, how are people supposed to know that?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I don't know. And I said, you are not ever letting people know how great you are. and how much you've taken care of people. And he said, well, I thought that was wrong. And I said, no, like think of flowers. You got to water them for them to grow. You're not ever being watered. You're wilting. How are you supposed to grow? And he said, I never thought of that before. So I started really watering him and teaching him how to water himself. And we gave him some new beliefs. And then I talked to him a couple of days ago. He made his first $80,000 sale, right? He broke a 3-year losing streak because we shifted a belief that he didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
So we have our blind spot. So what would you want to believe instead? Mm-hmm. Step number 3. Okay. Now, what's the third step? The third step is, if you believe this new belief that I am worthy, I am good, that I can do this, what would a big action step be for you? What would be a big step for you to take, a big domino that would push over all the other dominoes, right? Because you could do a lot with your time, but you've got to prioritize. And so a lot of times the big domino is, I need to find out about my beliefs, or I need to invest in some kind of, I'm just using stuff that we talked about. You don't have to use these techniques, but I need to invest in a sales program or an NLP technique course or something, so that I can get some more skills, which will help me become more aware of my blind spots, right? I need to make sure that I spend more time listening to all the interviews that Mel has put out, and then become a student of success, hanging out with Mel and his amazing wife, and the tools and strategies that he puts together. I mean, they're the best there is. And so subscribe, become a student of success, listen to all of these interviews that Mel's putting out for you. Get the feedback, right? Get the tools, get the strategies. Might be a big move for you. Maybe you need to, I always say the biggest breakthroughs are hidden in the places you don't want to go. Right. So
well said.
So if you focus instead on going into those places intentionally, you'll have big breakthroughs. So maybe you need to have that conversation with somebody, or you need to sit down with your spouse and say, I really need your support right now. I know it's scary and it seems like I'm wasting time, but for me to be able to make this happen and make this dream come true, I really need you to continue to believe in me. And what can we do to make that happen? Right. And so whatever it may be. Step number 4, right? So once you have asked, what do I have to believe that's holding me back? What do I want to believe instead? And then if I felt that way, what big action step could I take? Then after that, I want you to start thinking about that action step happened. How good would you feel? Like if it produced the results that you were actually looking for, how would it feel? That's called feelization. People always talk about visualization, right? Where you got to picture and imagine what you want, which is great. But the emotions are what cause you to take action. So you got to use feelization, right? And so that just means imagine that it actually did work out for you. And most people, when they think about it working out for them, they get tight. They get scared. They get the big swallow. They get the dry mouth. They feel the fluttering in their stomach, because what they really believe is that it's not going to work out. And if you have that belief in there, that's what keeps sabotaging you. That's why you won't lean in. That's why you won't keep moving forward. I've studied and hung out and talked with the greatest minds there are, from Brian Tracy and Seth Godin to Les Brown and Dr. Dennis Waitley. And I mean, I've talked to them on the phone and said, what is this? I've interviewed them and said, what is your secret? They all say the same thing. There really is no secret. You just got to keep going, and you just can't ever stop. You have to keep going. How do you get yourself to keep going even when you feel like it's never going to happen? By creating feelings inside and associating pleasure to what you want and upgrading your beliefs, so that you have this idea that even if it doesn't work out for me, I'm going to become such an amazing human being through this journey that I have to take it. That's what I tell myself. Yeah. I've had more things not work out, more failure, even though I think of it as feedback. I started out this year with 11 different opportunities, and 10 of them fell apart, right? One of them worked out. It was really great. But 10 of them fell apart, 10 out of 10, that's like almost 100. That would be 100%, but I had 11, right? So I had like 7% work out, right? But that's all that you need. Okay. So we get clear on what we're afraid of. Then we focus on what we want to believe instead. Then we figure out, if we felt that way, what big action would we take? Number 4 is we use visualization, so that we start to imagine the excitement. The only way to get through procrastination is associate pleasure to the goal. It's the only way you can get through and stay motivated and laser focused is if you feel good about taking action.
Yeah.
And then, of course, step 5 is act, right? Take action. Because if without action, you could have seeds, money seeds, but if you don't get them in the ground, they don't grow. And so you got to take that action. So those are the 5 steps that people can use right away to start turning a bad day into a better one.
It's funny because I always ask, on both sides of the coin, production for sales, retention for, overall customer value. And I think you just answered both questions. I think that applies to retention just as much as it applies to growth. How about internationally? You and I are both Americans. You and I both have, clients that are working internationally. Do you see NLP being any different in the international audience? Obviously language and linguistics are part of the whole thing. Is there an impact when you're using NLP in foreign countries as compared to domestically?
It's the same, because remember, hypnosis, NLP, it's all understanding how to speak the language of the person in front of you. And I don't just mean, English or French. Mm-hmm. I mean, what is their language? What do they value the most? Are they more visual? Are they more auditory or kinesthetic? How do they process the world? Do they want details and they want to get right to it? Or do they want to build the relationship first and slow down and get to know each other first? Yeah. Right. And so if you understand how to speak the language of the person in front of you, it doesn't matter where they're from. Right. And then because, I have clients all over the world, and they all have the same hopes and dreams and the worries and fears, and frustrations. I have a friend, Pavel, from Moscow, who's very frustrated right now because he's lost a lot of American engagements and speaking opportunities because of what's happening in Ukraine. He has nothing to do with that. Right. It's so unfair, and he's so frustrated. And so, but he's pivoting. Right. And that's what we're doing. I'm helping him pivot so that he can help the people that are right there in Russia. We have so many coaches in America, but not that many. There's only like 20 of them that he knows in Russia. I said, you need to be there. Wow. Right. So there's really not that much change. I do want to say, or difference internationally. I do want to reinforce something that you said right before that, when you talked about not just getting your customers, but keeping them. Retention is key. And so many people think that when you get the sale that you're done. And the sale is only half of it, right? The other half is making sure that things go well, that you're supporting people, that you're there for them, that you're staying in front of them, right? And you're building that relationship, because you don't want a sale. You want to build a relationship that gives you the lifetime value of that person. And so you had mentioned before someone who made a lot of money and they only did it through 7 people. Now, of course, those 7 people were probably very connected, and so that's why they were able, if you land the right people, it can make real dreams come true. Even with if you have clients, your top 10% are the ones that are going to do all the promoting for you, that are going to give you those online reviews, that are going to recommend their friends to you and say how great you are on their social media pages. 90% will not do that. But you still have to make sure that you're always building those relationships. You're always asking yourself, how can I add more value? And if you're going to add more value, because I believe that the more value you bring, the more valuable you become. And the best way to add value is to keep making yourself feel valued. Keep making yourself feel appreciated and loved and admired for the courage that it takes. I mean, network marketers are taking the road less traveled. They're not following the herd. They're not doing what everybody else does. So nobody else could understand the pressure. And nobody else is going to get the rewards either. Exactly. The kind of lifestyle that you can have, the kind of experiences, the kind of friends that you hang out with, the kind of mindset that you have, the ability to handle adversity, right? It's extraordinary, because it's about personal growth and development and maturity. So, I love network marketing, because I remember my first speech for Amway, right? Back in the days, a long time ago. And I just remember feeling so special, because I got to the airport, they picked me up, someone carried my suitcase. It wasn't someone from the hotel. It was someone that was in network marketing that was in charge of me. I never carried a bag. I opened up my hotel room and there was a fruit basket from them with a handwritten card. from the person that was bringing me in and kind of taking care of me during the convention.
Yeah.
And when they introduced me, I got a standing ovation, Mel. It's hard to get a standing ovation just in general.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard. Right. And so, and they gave me a standing ovation before I ever said a word. Wow. I'm like, that is so classy.
Yeah.
Because they have been trained, this audience has been trained to be givers, to make people feel special.
Yeah.
You know, in advance. And then they gave me a standing ovation afterwards, which I'd love to say was because of my material, but I'm not sure.
It was. You were amazing. You deserved it.
It was awesome. Yeah. And so, so those kinds of experiences, you know, really create classy people. And if you're listening to this or watching this interview, you're a pretty classy person. And so it really gives you an amazing opportunity to show up. Again, I always say it doesn't matter what shows up. What matters is how you show up. And this journey will allow you to show up in a way that'll leave you feeling proud of yourself and pleased with your life at the end of it.
Amen, brother. Hey, you know, speaking of pride, I know, you know, we're both family guys. We both done a ton of traveling, both worked very, very hard to supply for our families without distracting, you know, which is very hard when you do what we do. Can you spend a minute or two and just give a, you know, 1 tip, 2 tips, 3 tips, whatever you want to do, but balancing the hectic schedule you've had in this industry with keeping the family smiling. And I'm not talking just, you know, during lockdown, because obviously lockdown, we're all locked together and, you know, it was going to go one way or another. Either you already had a great relationship with your family and it only deepened, or everything went sideways. But before this, when you were doing a lot of traveling, a lot of speaking gigs, how are you balancing out, you know, keeping your wife and kids and everybody happy while still supporting dad, being on the road, doing all sorts of crazy stuff?
Yeah, it's difficult. You know, this idea of you can have it all and conquer the world creates a lot of suffering because you think that you're supposed to be able to do that. And then, you know, and then you have people saying, just don't sleep, you know, just drink more coffee. You know, if I only sleep 2 hours a night, hurrah! That's horrible advice.
Exactly.
That leads to burnout and mental breakdown. And so there's so much advice you should not listen to. And so it was hard, Mel. And so, like I said, getting off that crazy train. And so, but here's a couple of things that I did that might help someone else. First, it's not always quantity of time, it's quality of time. Right. So if we don't spend a lot of time together because we're all busy, I've got two teenage boys. I've been married to my wife for 27 years. And so, you know, we have it's a hectic lifestyle. And so when we're together, you know, we always sit around the dinner table, we're talking, we're very supportive and loving and caring and asking each other questions and always really connected when we're in that space. Right. And so we put our phones away and we're just focused on each other. Yeah. When we, there have been challenges. My wife and I have had many arguments, unfortunately, over the years because I was on my laptop too much because that's where my business was. Yep. You know, whether it was Zoom calls or, you know, all the emails or all the marketing is there. And you know, when they say that when you get successful, you have all this free time. I've not found that to be the case. The more success I've had, the more customers that I've had, the more opportunities, the more stuff to do, you know, and then of course, then you've got to write a book and you've got to, you know, be on social media and you've got to do all these other engagements and interviews. And, and so, so you have to really make sure that you create time and you create sacred space to hang out with your loved ones and make them feel like they're more important than your laptop and your smartphone.
Very well said.
Yeah, setting boundaries. You know, I would work through dinners a lot of time and I don't do that anymore. I don't care what I have going on. It's going to stop because I got to make my family feel important and valued and special. It's easy to say we do that, but then, you know, when the rubber hits the road, a lot of times people will know I'm got to go make that money. Yep. Because having that paycheck is what makes me feel safe. And I know my family's just there. And that's what a lot of people feel, even though they would not want to say that out loud. Yeah. And so, so setting boundaries, setting time limits, knowing that the world's going to keep spinning and get rid of the idea of FOMO, fear of missing out, just throw it out because that will cause you to keep sacrificing yourself, your health, your sleep, and your family. Your relationships, your friends, because, oh, I don't want to miss out. I don't want someone to not hire me. If they don't hire you, someone else will. Yeah. right? Because that's not the kind of person you want to hang around with anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have this meeting, I'm never going to get another chance. If that's truly that's the case, and that person, it could be someone that would be amazing for you in your downline, then make the meeting. But if you're saying that every time, then that's a limiting belief, right? And so those are some of the things that I do. I set those time limits. I really focus on quality as opposed to a lot of quantity time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I always make sure that I tell my wife and my kids that I love them all the time and I appreciate them. I don't criticize. I don't make fun of. I don't tease anymore. And I grew up in the 70s where everybody was sarcastic. Everybody ripped on everybody.
That's what we did.
That's what we did.
Yeah. And that was being friends, was picking on each other. That's how I grew up the same way.
Picking on each other.
Yeah. That was friendship.
Yeah. But it wasn't,
Right.
It was a lot of hurt feelings and stuff that we had to deal with and take personal and blow it off and shove it down. But that's how everybody was. And so I've had to work really hard, and my wife has worked really hard on me too. God bless her. And so that I don't do that in my house. I don't do it anywhere, but I don't do it in my house. And I think that's one of the things that's made me very successful is I lift people up all the time.
Yeah.
The world is hard enough. The world's going to beat you up. You don't need me doing it. And nobody needs their parent or their spouse doing it either. So it is all 100% love and support and kindness and encouragement and reinforcement, reassurance. That's the word, reassurance.
Yeah.
And that has made us a very strong, close-knit family and saved my marriage on many occasions.
Brother, that lesson you just taught in the last 15 seconds made it worth watching this interview. Let's all be honest with each other. Getting that sort of centeredness with your family, learning how to remove years of childhood. I don't want to call it scars, but it kind of is. We all went through it. Excuse me. So before I ask you the last question, I know some folks are probably not going to get a chance because they're going to watch this on their phone. They probably won't scroll through the show notes. First and foremost, how should folks get a hold of you? What's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you?
Well, I've got a program that I would love to share with everybody that's on here because
Please.
I know that you have an audience of people who are doers and will take action. So it's called The Power of Your Unconscious Mind. And it's just a bunch of fun stories from 30 years of doing hypnosis and watching people achieve the impossible goal, whether it was making a bunch of money or losing half their body weight or overcoming their trauma from the past and building super confidence. So it's really great. And you can have a free copy of that audiobook. You just go to powermindsetprogram.com, powermindsetprogram.com, and that'll take you right to it. And you can check that out. And of course, I'm on timshurr.com, indiehypnosis.com, and all the social media if you Google me.
Okay, perfect. Last question, and one of my favorites is, what is your 6-month goal?
I have opened the doors to my hypnosis certification program. I've had people ask for years, could you teach me what you do? Because I'm one of the best hypnotists in the world, one of the best coaches in the world. And my clients get crazy, awesome results very quickly. That's kind of my claim to fame, is I can help people produce results lightning fast. And so I just decided after 6 years to open up my Hypnotism Academy once more and start teaching people my one belief away hypnosis method. And because my goal is to change and disrupt the therapy model. Because most people, when they go to therapy, it's talk therapy and medication, and neither one of those do a very good job of getting people results. So through that, I'm building an army of healers who are going to help veterans to overcome post-traumatic stress and help them put their life back together. I'm creating a seminar called One Final Mission, because, they come home and they do not know how to put their thoughts back together, how to deal with the evil that they had to tap into to survive combat. And now they come home to civilian life and they're still dealing with that evil and don't know how to deal with it. And so, I'm teaching people. We're going to help veterans with that, because it's not going to come through the VA. It has to be a grassroots effort. I've helped hundreds of veterans with this. And so I've recruited a whole bunch of amazing veterans who want to help their brothers and sisters to continue to feel good and to disconnect the triggers that they're feeling because of Ukraine, because they're not over there, and all the stuff that goes with that. And so I'm locking that in, and we're going to build this army of healers, Mel, and it's going to be awesome.
I love it, brother. It's a good 6-month goal. Thanks so much for everything you do with this. And, you and I have spoken about PTSD and working with veterans before. And I just love that so much. So folks, Tim Shurr, obviously you've heard he's worked with different network marketing companies. He has several different programs and some gifts out there for you. So please look him up. Tim, it was so great having you on. I mean, every time we're on, I give you a list of questions and we never ask them because we always end up talking about such much more interesting things because of the conversation. So thanks for being on today, but I really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, Mel. You are such an inspiration. You do so much good in the world, and I love hanging out with you every single time. So thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you, brother. Have a great day.
Hey there. I hope you really enjoyed the show. And now I have a question to ask. Do you want to know how to build a 7-figure network with just 3 to 5 enrollments a month? That's just 3 to 5 conversations, not 30 to 50. That means we only have to convince 3 to 5 people to say yes to build a real 7-figure network. Scan the code or click the link at the bottom of this page now to discover the step-by-step method for exactly how you can add hundreds, if not thousands of customers to your downline by recruiting and enrolling businesses and health professionals onto your team that have hundreds of built-in customers that need your product or opportunity. Get the 7-figure network book now, and let's start building massive volume with an enormous downline of businesses, health professionals, and customers.